95% of people who are quietly becoming wealthy have no idea it's happening. They check their bank account, see a number that isn't impressive, and assume they're behind. Meanwhile, the 5% who actually are behind are the ones driving the car that makes everyone else feel poor. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Wealth doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up as a text message. It doesn't feel like anything most days. It builds in silence, in decisions nobody claps for, in a version of your life that looks almost identical to last year's. So today I'm going to show you exactly why the way you feel about your money has almost nothing to do with what's actually happening to your money, and 6 specific signs that tell you the truth, even when your gut is lying to you. You are not behind because your bank balance looks unimpressive. You are not behind because your friend just bought a house and you're still renting. You are not behind because Instagram is having a great year and you're not. It's not your income. It's not your age. It's not the size of your apartment. The difference between the people quietly getting rich and the people quietly getting poorer isn't what you'd think. The difference is this. One group is optimizing for how their life looks, and the other is optimizing for what their life is becoming. And you can be in the second group without ever feeling like it. Let me show you what that actually looks like. Because 2 people can earn the exact same paycheck and end up in completely different places, and neither one will see it coming for years. So, put yourself in it for a second. You make $91,000 a year as an account manager at a mid-sized logistics company. You're 34, you just leased a 2024 BMW 3 Series, $612 a month, because you got the offer letter and figured you'd earned it. You've got a nice 1-bedroom in a building with a gym you use twice a month. You order DoorDash 4 nights a week because after a 10-hour day, cooking feels like punishment. You bought a Peloton in January and haven't touched it since March. Your credit card balance floats between $4,000 and $7,000, and you tell yourself it's just how life is right now. You'll get serious about savings once the promotion comes through, once the bonus hits, once things settle down. You're not stupid, you're not lazy, you're doing exactly what almost everyone around you is doing, and by every visible measure, you look like you're winning. People see your car in the parking lot and assume you've got it figured out. Now here's Maria. She makes $84,000 a year as a physical therapist. She's 36. She drives a 2016 Honda Civic with 211,000 miles on it, and it has a slightly annoying rattle in the passenger door she keeps meaning to fix. She lives in a 2-bedroom she splits with a roommate, not because she can't afford her own place, but because splitting rent frees up $800 a month, and she's decided that $800 has a better job to do somewhere else. She meal preps on Sundays. She has an automatic transfer of $600 that leaves her checking account the day after every paycheck hits, before she ever sees it, into a brokerage account she barely checks. She's been doing this for 6 years. Nobody in the parking lot is impressed by Maria's car. Nobody assumes Maria has it figured out. Nobody's assuming anything about Maria at all. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Your net worth, in this scenario, at 34, is negative $4,000 once you count the credit cards and what's left on the lease. Maria's net worth, at 36, sitting quietly in index funds and a Roth IRA she opened at 28, is $161,000. Not because Maria is smarter than you. Not because Maria makes more money, she makes less. Because Maria built a system that moves money before she can feel its absence, and you built a lifestyle that consumes money before you can feel its presence. Same paychecks, same 24 hours in a day, completely different trajectories, and only one of them is visible from the outside. That gap, the one between what your life looks like and what your life is actually becoming, is where wealth hides. And if you don't know what to look for, you'll miss every sign that it's happening to you. This is the part that trips up almost everyone. We're trained to read wealth off the surface of someone's life, because the surface is the only part we can actually see. The car in the parking lot, the vacation photos, the renovated kitchen. None of that is data about someone's actual financial position. It's data about their spending decisions, which is a completely different thing. A person can spend like they're rich for years while quietly becoming poorer, and a person can spend like they're ordinary for years while quietly becoming wealthy. The surface tells you nothing reliable. It never did, and yet almost everyone, including people who should know better, keeps using it as their primary measure, both for judging other people and for judging themselves. So here are 6 signs. Some of these will sound too small to matter. That's exactly the point. Wealth is built entirely out of things too small to matter, repeated for long enough that they stop being small. Sign 1. You've stopped needing to check your balance out of fear. Think about the last time you checked your bank account. Was it out of curiosity or out of dread? There's a specific kind of stomach drop feeling. You open the app before you've even had coffee, bracing yourself because some part of you isn't sure the number will be what you think it is. If that feeling has quietly disappeared from your life, that's not nothing, that's a sign. Jason, a 31-year-old warehouse supervisor, used to check his account every single morning with actual anxiety. Rent was due on the 1st, his paycheck hit on the 3rd, and for 2 days every month he lived in a low-grade panic, doing math in his head about which bills could wait. He started keeping a $1,000 buffer in checking that he treated as untouchable. Not savings, just a floor that never moved. 18 months later, he realized he hadn't checked his balance out of fear in almost a year. He checked it to see how much was there, not whether it was enough. The 95% measure their financial health by their bank balance. The 5% measure it by the absence of that specific fear. Because a fluctuating number means nothing on its own. What matters is whether you have a floor under you that doesn't move. When that floor exists, your brain stops treating every purchase as a potential emergency. That mental shift, the one where money stops being a source of low-grade dread, usually shows up months before your net worth does. It's the earliest sign, and almost nobody clocks it as one. Sign 2. You've said no to something you could technically afford. This one sounds backwards. Shouldn't getting richer mean saying yes to more things, not fewer? Here's what's actually happening. The people quietly building wealth develop a specific skill. The ability to want something, have the money for it, and choose not to buy it, not out of deprivation, but out of a clear sense that the money has a better use. Angela, a nurse in her late 20s, tells a story about standing in a Best Buy with the money for a new laptop sitting in her checking account. Her old one worked fine. It was just slow, and everyone she knew had upgraded. She stood there for 10 minutes, put the laptop back on the shelf, and drove home with the old one still in her bag. Nothing dramatic happened. No one congratulated her. She just quietly transferred $400 into her investment account that same week instead. That single decision, repeated across years, is the difference between the 95% and the 5%. Not because laptops are evil, because the habit of pausing before a purchase you can afford, and sometimes declining it anyway, rewires how your brain relates to money. The 95% ask, "Can I afford this?" The 5% ask, "Is this the best use of this money, compared to every other use it could have?" That second question is quieter, less satisfying in the moment, and it's the one that makes people rich without them noticing. Sign 3. A percentage of your income disappears before you see it, and you've forgotten the exact number. If someone asked you right now exactly how much money moved out of your paycheck automatically last month, into savings, into a 401k, into an investment account, could you answer instantly? Or would you have to go check? If you had to go check, that might actually be a good sign. It means the system runs without you. Tom, a high school teacher, set up an automatic contribution to his 403b the year he started teaching. 8% of his salary. He bumped it up by 1% every time he got a raise. A habit he picked up almost by accident after reading that raises disappear into lifestyle creep if you don't intercept them immediately. 12 years later, he's contributing 15% of his salary and living comfortably on the rest, and when you ask him how much comes out automatically, he has to pause and actually think about it. The 95% treats saving as a decision they make every month, which means it competes with every other decision. The dinner out, the new shoes, the concert tickets, and decisions you have to remake constantly are decisions you eventually stop making. The 5% treats saving as infrastructure, something that happens the way electricity happens, without a daily vote. When you've forgotten the exact percentage that disappears from your paycheck, it usually means the number has become large enough and automatic enough that it's no longer a choice. It's just what happens to your money now, the same way rent happens, the same way taxes happen. Sign 4. You've started thinking in years instead of paychecks. Pay attention to the time frame your brain defaults to when you think about money. Is it, "Can I make it to Friday?" Or is it, Where will this put me in 5 years? Priya, a graphic designer who freelances, spent her first 3 years of self-employment thinking exclusively in invoices. Did this client pay yet? Can I cover next month's software subscriptions? It was exhausting, and it kept her stuck making short-term decisions, taking underpriced rush jobs because she needed cash now, not because they made sense long-term. The shift happened when she started tracking her income annually instead of monthly. Not because the annual number changed anything about her bills, but because it changed the questions she asked. Instead of "Can I afford this client's low rate right now?" she started asking, "Does saying yes to this client at this rate make sense for where I want to be in 3 years?" She turned down 2 of her lowest-paying, highest-stress clients within a month of making that shift. Her income actually dropped for 2 months before it rebounded higher than ever, because she had room to take better work. The 95% live inside the paycheck cycle, making decisions optimized for the next 14 days. The 5% zoom out, sometimes uncomfortably far out, and let a 5-year picture inform a decision happening today. If you've caught yourself recently thinking, "I don't need this today, but where will this money be worth more in 3 years?" That's not a small mental habit. That's the exact habit that separates people who accumulate wealth from people who just cycle it. Sign 5. Your stress about money has changed shape, not size. This one trips people up the most because it sounds like nothing changed. You're still stressed about money. Isn't that proof you're not getting anywhere? Not necessarily. Pay attention to what specifically you're stressed about. Kevin, a mechanic who owns his own small shop, used to feel anxious about money in a very specific way. He wasn't sure he could make payroll some months, and that fear kept him up at night for years. 5 years later, he still feels stress about money, but it's a completely different stress. Now he's anxious about whether he's picked the right retirement account, whether he should max out his SEP IRA this year or invest more in expanding the shop, whether a Roth conversion makes sense for his situation. That's not survival stress, that's optimization stress. It's the stress of someone with resources trying to allocate them well, not someone trying to avoid a cliff. The 95% experience money stress that's about scarcity. Will there be enough? The 5%, once they cross a certain point, experience money stress that's about decisions. What's the smartest thing to do with what exists? Both feel like stress from the inside. They are not the same thing. If your money anxiety used to be, "I hope this doesn't bounce," and it's slowly become, "I wonder if I should rebalance my portfolio," even if you still feel anxious, that shift in the type of worry is one of the clearest signs that your financial position has moved, even though the emotional temperature feels identical. Sign 6. Other people have started asking you for advice. This one feels almost accidental, but it's remarkably consistent. At some point, the people quietly building wealth notice that friends, siblings, coworkers start asking them things. Should I open a Roth IRA? How do you decide how much to put toward the mortgage versus investing? What's a high-yield savings account? And is it worth it? Rachel, an elementary school teacher, said she didn't even register it happening until her sister asked her, half joking, "When did you become the family's financial advisor?" Rachel hadn't done anything dramatic. She just spent 5 years reading a little, asking questions, automating her savings, and occasionally mentioning what she was doing at family dinners. She wasn't rich by any traditional measure. She still drove a used Corolla and clipped coupons out of habit. But somewhere along the way, she'd accumulated enough clarity about money that people around her started treating her as a resource. Here's why this matters. You generally don't get asked for financial advice by accident. People, often without realizing it, calibrate who to ask based on subtle cues. Confidence, specificity, the sense that this person has actually thought about this and isn't just guessing. If people have started coming to you, even casually, even about small things, it usually means you've quietly built more financial literacy and stability than you're giving yourself credit for. The 95% are still asking the questions. The 5% have started, almost without noticing, becoming the ones who answer them. 6 signs. None of them involve a specific bank balance. None of them require you to own a house or hit some arbitrary milestone by a certain age. They're not about how much money exists. They're about how your relationship to money has changed. The fear that's gone quiet. The ability to decline what you can afford. The automation that's replaced the daily decision, the time frame your brain defaults to, the shape of your stress, and the fact that people have started looking to you instead of the other way around. Here's the identity shift underneath all 6 of these, and it's the part most people never make explicitly, even when they're living it. There's a difference between someone who has money and someone who is becoming wealthy, and it has almost nothing to do with the number in their account today. Someone who has money is managing a static pile, spending it, protecting it, occasionally worrying about it. Someone who is becoming wealthy has built a direction, a set of habits and systems that move a portion of every dollar that touches their life toward a future version of themselves, automatically, without requiring willpower every single time. When you stop asking, "How much do I have?" and start asking, "Which direction is this moving?" you stop being someone who has money and become someone who is building it. That shift doesn't feel dramatic. It won't feel like a movie moment. It usually just feels like Tuesday. Which brings me to the part nobody wants to hear. The part that ruins the fantasy for most people watching a video with a title like this one. Getting rich, quietly, the way Maria did, the way Tom did, the way Rachel did, is boring. It looks like the same grocery store, the same slightly too old car, the same Sunday meal prep, for years, without a single dramatic moment to point to. There's no montage. There's no morning you wake up and feel richer. If building wealth feels exciting, if it feels like a rush, a big win, a dramatic turning point, you're probably not building wealth. You're probably gambling, or spending, or chasing a feeling instead of a direction. The actual process is closer to brushing your teeth than winning the lottery. It's a habit performed without much emotion, whose entire value comes from happening consistently over a time frame most people aren't patient enough to wait for. That's the part that filters people out. Everyone wants the number. Almost no one wants the 8 years of automatic transfers and declined purchases and meal prep containers that produce the number. And that's exactly why it works for the people who stick with it, because most people quit the boring part, which means the boring part keeps working for the ones who don't. So let's go back to you and Maria, because the story doesn't end where I left it. 5 years after that scenario, you at 34 with the BMW and the floating credit card balance, Maria at 36 with her Civic and her rattling door. You're 39 now. You got the promotion. Your income is $106,000. You also got a new lease, a nicer apartment, and 2 vacations a year that you financed on a card you pay the minimum on. Your net worth is roughly where it was 5 years ago, adjusted for a slightly larger negative number. You still tell yourself you'll get serious about it once things settle down. Maria is 41. She still drives the Civic. It finally died 2 years ago, and she paid cash for a slightly newer used one instead of financing anything. She moved into her own 1-bedroom eventually, once the math made sense. Her investment accounts, still fed by that same automatic transfer she set up at 30, now sitting a little higher because she bumped it twice over the years, are worth just north of $340,000. She has never once felt like she was getting rich. Most days, she still feels like a physical therapist, with a rattly old car and a modest apartment, meal prepping on a Sunday because it's cheaper and easier than figuring out dinner every night. Neither of you feels the way you'd expect. You, who look successful, feel quietly behind and don't know why. Maria, who looks ordinary, is worth over $300,000 and has no idea she's ahead of almost everyone her age. So here's the choice, and it's the same choice it's always been. You can keep measuring your financial life by how it looks, the car, the apartment, the vacations, the number you feel like you should have by now, and stay in the 95%. Checking your balance with dread, saying yes to everything you can technically afford, waiting for the moment it all comes together. Or you can start looking for the 6 quiet signs, the ones that don't feel like anything dramatic, and start noticing that the direction of your life might already be pointed somewhere better than your bank balance is telling you. Because the truth is, you might already be getting rich. You just haven't been taught to recognize what it looks like while it's happening.